After 35 years, Willow is back as a Disney Plus series, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your thoughts on the new Willow series and give me some context. Have you seen the original movie? Did you grow up with the original movie? Kind of put it in perspective, your take on the show. This will be a spoiler-free review, so be spoiler-free down below in the comment section, or be sure to include a spoiler warning. The first episode in particular does have a major reveal. Thus, if you want to discuss it, just put a spoiler warning up first. As we go into this, I've seen the first 6 episodes of the season. There will be 8 episodes in the season, so I've seen 3/4 of it. They sent out actually 7 episodes to critics, but I wasn't able to get the 7th one watched before today. Thus, I'm basing this off the 6 episodes I have seen, and I have not seen the final stretch of the season. And let's get started with the good, and right off the bat, it's just nice to be back in this world. Now, I did grow up watching Willow, but I was never like a Willow fanatic. It was always just kind of the other George Lucas property that when I got to watch it, it was like, oh, cool, I get to watch Willow. But I never loved it as much as I thought I would. Every time I'd watch it, I was like, that was good, but not quite as great as I always hoped that it would be. So when they announced this show, I was kind of surprised just kind of how nostalgic I felt for it. How much I was like giddy and excited to see more of Willow in this world. And so getting to see this show and go back there was just something I enjoyed doing. Along those lines, I really appreciated that it's very much a sequel to the movie. It is a continuation of the prophecy, the plot points, the threat that was established there, and just kind of making it clear the evil wasn't defeated with that movie, and that same threat has the same hope, and that's what this journey is about, trying to continue to push back the evil through the prophesied one that would save everyone, while throwing more prophecies into the mix, more dangers and new heroes and mythology and all sorts of fun stuff along those lines. Likewise, it's just kind of a fun genre. And we're at a point in time now where television shows have a budget, technology, CGI, and everything are at a place where you can do a bunch of really cool stuff that has big, gigantic, sweeping scope and size to it as a television show. Just even in the first couple of episodes, there's all these sequences of them riding horses in gigantic fields, and there's these just swooping shots of them, gigantic open spaces, castles off in the background, and it feels huge, and it's a TV show. And of Lucasfilm properties, Willow's like the low one on the list. It's the least popular, and still you're just getting to see these huge, gigantic worlds, and I love that. In each episode, you're getting a couple of different action sequences, whether it's chase, swords play, sorcery. There's a couple different big set pieces in each episode, so there's a good bit of action in here. And then the episodes themselves, having seen 6 of them, they're all 45 to 55 minutes long. They're long enough to have weight to them, where something actually happens, where there's revelations about our characters, whether flashbacks, twists, turns, that fun stuff, a little bit of comedy, couple of action set pieces. So it really feels like something happens every single episode, because the episodes have enough length and weight to them to matter. And back to kind of what I said about at the beginning, just getting to see more Willow is nice. Seeing where this character is at, and as someone that's always kind of been looked down upon, people assume so little of him or expect so little of him. And he's kind of continues to be in that place. And it's a very weird version of it, because on the one hand, he has the reputation as the sorcerer that was in the first movie. That story's been told in the world of Willow. And at the same time, people don't believe in him still, because the threats are greater and it's been so long since anyone's fought back. So they still don't fully believe in him. So he's able to have some nice little moments in the show because of that. And those are some of those profound moments to me when you see the competing visions of what should have been done with Laura and the backstory of everything going on as they're trying to deal with everything, the prophecies. And that's probably the stuff that kind of connected with me the most. And the way that it kind of goes on once you get past the first couple of episodes, they do spend time with each character, kind of giving some backstory. Now, I'll have more to say on these new characters in the later section of this video, but they do give them time. Backstory, twists, turns, revelations. So I appreciated that they didn't treat them just as side characters with no backstory. They do get backstories. Whether it's good, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But just in general, it's enjoyable to be in this fantasy world with swords play, rescues, sorcery, all that fun stuff, a nice mythology. It's enjoyable. It's a thing that I like, that we're getting weekly installments of it. And after I watched, they sent us the first 3 episodes and then they sent us 4 more. When we got to the end of the first 3, I was like, oh, I can't wait to check out more. I can't wait to see what else is kind of going to go on here. That's where I kind of felt on the show. Having seen now 3 more episodes, I had more frustrations after the next 3 episodes. So let's move on to the bad. This is where things get really frustrating because there was so much about this show that I was really on board with and had a lot of fun with, as what I just discussed, just being back in this world. And as I was watching it, it kept like losing me and winning me back and then kind of losing me again. It was very uneven. There were just a lot of choices in here that were strange. It felt a little bit like some of that depended on who wrote the episode or who directed the episode as to how much they kind of veered off in certain directions that just didn't really work for me. But to try and not go too much into too many specifics, part of it is a lot of it plays like CW's Willow, or a highly Disney-ified version of Willow. And what do I mean by that? All of these new characters, the young kids, play like 21st century teenagers just dropped into a fantasy story. The way they talk, their value set. So they do a whole plot line about, this is the first episode, so this isn't like a major spoiler or anything, a whole major plot episode about Kit, who is the daughter of Mardigan and the queen, how she's supposed to be in an arranged marriage and she doesn't want that. And every one of there's potentially an interesting discussion there, which they did something very similar in House of the Dragon. Here, it just plays like a kid that has grown up in a society without arranged marriages, talking about wanting to marry for love, not for obligation. There's no actual exploration of responsibility or anything like that. It's just someone she's a princess that has been raised with certain values, certain responsibilities, and her character just rejects all of them. Just rejects them. Because it's not like taking any of this seriously. It's just borrowing tropes from fantasy, arranged marriages, and things of the past, and then just dropping in characters that do not think or talk or behave like people from the time period or the world that they're exploring. They behave like people from our world. It just kind of pulls you right out of it. You're just watching people that their characters don't fit in the story that they've been dropped into. There's a lot of like little love triangles. All of it's very heavy-handed. You don't really buy into the chemistry of much of it. And so it just the CW-isms, the lightness of it, the way that it kind of plays out just didn't work for me. I put out some tweets about the first 3 episodes, and I felt that in the first episode, especially with this arranged marriage. I didn't feel it so much when you got into episodes 2 and 3. Episode 2 in particular was written by the guy that wrote the original film. And so this guy that I'm sure is like 70 years old now or something like that, he probably is going to be less inclined to write like modern day teenagers. And then you felt that it focused on Willow a little bit more and not on these younger characters. And I think it worked a little bit better. When it got into the back half of the season, I felt more of that kind of the Disney-ified, CW-ified feeling of the way the characters were written. It's like, really, we're still doing this? They have the emotional maturity of 13-year-olds, but they're off on this quest to try and save the world, and they're being so petty, getting worked up about the dumbest things. Speaking of being petty and getting worked up over the dumbest things, the Kit character that I mentioned before, the daughter of Mad Mardigan, I think she's just awful. 6 episodes in, maybe they'll find some way to redeem her in the last couple episodes. I think she's just a terrible, terrible character that from the get-go, they introduce her in a way that is not in any way puts her in a good light, and it never really gets better from there. And I've seen some people on Twitter saying that she has the best journey, and I loved her arc of how she learned and grew, and I was like, I saw it totally opposite. She's a princess. She's born into power and luxury and entitlement and perpetually talks down to people and doesn't want to take responsibility, doesn't want to own up to her role in society. She just wants to do what she wants to do. And she's arrogant and cocky, like her introduction is a sword fight where she defeats someone. And the way that she talks to the other person is just like condescending. And you can say those are the traits that you would find in a Mad Mardigan. It's not surprising his children would have this rebellious streak, but it plays horribly when you're like, Mad Mardigan is introduced as a guy in a cage in the first film. He is this scoundrel rogue off on his own. It doesn't play well when it's a young girl who's a princess and has lived a life of luxury, and she's talking that way to people subordinate to her. And she's talking bad about the kitchen staff. It doesn't play right. And as you continue throughout the season, that doesn't really go away. She just like whines about other characters. She's jealous of other characters. And they give a reason behind it eventually. But at the point in time where it comes out, it doesn't play right. It doesn't work right because the stakes are too high, too important for her pettiness to trump all of that. And that sort of thing just, I think, weighs down the show dramatically for me. That we're spending a bunch of time with characters that are written with the emotional maturity of tweens. And those are our heroes that are off on the adventure. It just like they're just the wrong characters. They're not exciting. And along those same lines, the whole show has a gigantic Mad Mardigan hole in the center of it, where he was a big part of what brought to life the original film. This rogue scoundrel who just happens to actually be the greatest swordsman that's alive, who starts off in a cage, selfish, and becomes the hero that he had all the talent to be by the end of the film. So you have this redemptive arc, but also you've got a Val Kilmer charisma and just the type of character that's always fun. He's obviously the Han Solo-esque character of Willow, and those are always fun additions. So they try to fill that by having a couple of his kids in here. We got Borman has a little bit of that role. None of them, though, fully, in any sort of way, come close to matching the Mad Mardigan energy. Now, I want to pause right here. The first 2 episodes kind of imply some things about Mad Mardigan that, at least from his kid's perspective, that they go in where they take his character and what he's been up to. And the answers were much better than the teases in the first 2 episodes. The idea that they leave it at just, he's a deadbeat that left them, they would have lost me, but there's more to it than that. Other kind of things in here that bugged me. The song selection is bizarre. Like, the fantastic score. The music from the originals, obviously awesome, and then they brought in another great composer to get more great music in here. And then you get to the end of every episode, and like a pop rock song plays, or a interesting cover of a grunge song plays. All 6 episodes that I've seen do this. And then a couple of the episodes later in the season just do it in the middle of the episodes where they're like playing punk rock. It's just bizarre. I have no idea why they would do that. It doesn't fit. Other one kind of along these lines and playing into a little bit of how this is the CW version of Willow, but there's some episodes later on that played to me like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I love that show, but it's totally consistent with itself. Later in the season, you get to some episodes where you meet some creatures that are speaking. They look like monsters that should like growl and maybe say like die like that with like a scary voice. And they just start talking with like nice, crisp, clean voices with nice enunciation. And they're quipping and joking with each other like they're bad guys in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Just like me was like, what? This is weird. This doesn't fit. There's some bits where like they make jokes about someone taking a shower and it's like in slow-mo, like it's a shampoo commercial or something like that. There's just a lot of things like that that just feel out of place, that kind of come out of nowhere. Final couple things I want to touch on here is that like I said, I'm 2/3 of the way through it. You never really feel the bonding amongst the crew, the team. They always feel like they're still bantering like they were in the first episode. Willow is a part of that too, where he's still annoyed with everyone. And he's in kind of the mentor role. He's kind of the Yoda of this, where he's supposed to be training them in a sense. And he still just kind of comes off impatient. And they never let you bond, even though you spend a lot of time with them. It doesn't feel like we're moving forward relationally. And along those same lines, I'm moving into the final stretch of the season, and it doesn't feel like we've really progressed our main plot line or developed the villains or anything like that. It's still just this nebulous force out there. And I didn't feel this after the first 3 episodes, but after episodes 4, 5, and 6, the episodes start to feel like side quests, kind of like what they did in Mandalorian season 2, where the main plot is like, I just need to get Yoda over to this person. And so then each episode is like a side quest where you do something tangentially related to our main quest, kind of progresses things. But at the end of the episode, you haven't really given us anything new on the plot. And so it just feels like we needed to get more with the villains, more with this threat. We needed some big, gigantic twist turn to happen in the middle there that kind of changes up the formula, because thus far, it's just like we went to a new place to try and get to the next place to find out the next place we're supposed to go. Just a lot of that sort of thing. So it's really frustrating for me because I went in very excited to check it out. And on the one hand, it has delivered a lot of that experience that I did want of back in this world, expanding the mythology, more time with Willow. And then you just have a bunch of these characters that aren't interesting, a plot that kind of feels like it's spinning its wheels a little bit rather than actually developing out the main story. It's just kind of a series of side quests before we get to our finale. And so it was close, but at the same time quite far too. If you like the original Willow, you should check it out to see where Willow's at, how they're developing the story, and what they're kind of doing with the Elora Danan character. It's worth seeing where the mythology is going, but go in with tempered expectations. In particular, if you're like me in your 40s and watched Willow back in the 80s when it first came out, there's a lot of things in here that are pretty kiddie and not probably the best direction to take a follow-up to that original film. But on that main story level, there are some things that were what I was hoping I would get out of Willow. So very much a mixed bag, some solid highs, a few too many low lows. If you enjoyed this video, check out my review of the original Willow right over there. I'm going to drop it at the same time that I drop this video over on my second channel. If you don't know, I do have a second channel where I kind of review smaller things or older movies, kind of more TV shows, a little bit more relaxed than over here on the main channel, more niche. But you can check out my review of the original Willow film over there. Thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.